Good evening. Tonight's feature presentation was The Mummy's Ghost, and as I predicted, it wasn't an actual ghost. It was a tangible, physical mummy who was actually there. But gotta call something the Mummy's Ghost because there's the ghost of Frankenstein and probably other ghosts. But before I get to that, there's just a couple of movies that we watched before that. The first was The Worst Witch. It's a television movie from the 80s that we watched, or for me, it was because it was highly recommended by an Instagram acquaintance with whom I once worked on a play. And it was, it was what it was, and it was very cute. It was, if nothing else, very cute. I thought I heard Maggie Smith several times, but she wasn't in it. But Tim Curry was in it, and he did a great musical number. And it was like if Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Melissa Joan Hart version, it took place at Hogwarts, and it featured the cast of Harriet the Spy, the Michelle Trachtenberg movie. That's what this movie was. So if that appeals to you, go for it. And then we watched a movie called Dead Ant, and we watched it all the way through because we just knew that at the very end there was going to be a showdown between giant ants and these people that we don't really care that much about, mostly members of a metal band. And sure enough, there was, and it wasn't necessarily worth the rest of the movie. Also, the biggest ant appeared at the very beginning of the movie and never came back. So I thought they were having the big ant, the really big ant, the giant one, at the beginning as there's going to be more of this ant at the end, and then I didn't see it. Maybe I missed it, but I don't know. And tonight we watched a Treehouse of Horror, whatever number, and it's the one where with the grim fairy tales, and what was the other ones? There's the Homer dies and has to do a good deed or he doesn't get into heaven. And there was a third, I don't remember what it was, so I'm just going to go right here. So I actually looked at the synopsis on the inside here, and I'm going to read it. Karis and another high priest, Yusuf Bey, discover that Karis's lost love, the princess Ananka, has been reincarnated as a beautiful college girl. And that's really all that you need to know. The Yusuf Bey is the new mummy's assistant, as it were. I think that the second one, that the Mummy's Hand, I didn't say this when I was talking about that movie, but I think the Mummy's Hand, it doesn't refer to a literal hand of the mummy. It's like the hand of the king in Game of Thrones, where these high priests are the mummy's hand. They are how the mummy reaches out or whatever. They're the trusted advisor. It's something like that. And so this is the new mummy's hand. And he develops... The mummy is still living in a swamp, which makes him Swamp Thing. And he's also... The end of this movie, just like the end of the last movie, kind of becomes Frankenstein again. There's a mob of people after the limping, lurching creature played by Lon Chaney. And he puts a woman in a body of water, which Frankenstein's monster does in that movie. So I think they're just remaking Frankenstein movies with the mummy movies at this point. In all honesty, I'm not nearly as interested in these mummy movies as I am in The Invisible Man and Dracula and some others. I try to be, and I will, of course, give them another shot at some point, but they don't grab me and force me to pay attention like a Son of Dracula or a Dracula's Daughter or a Bride of Frankenstein. Of course, Bride of Frankenstein is based on the best part of the best novel ever written, so it has an advantage. So basically, the plot is the hand of the mummy, the mummy's hand, played by John Carradine, unfortunately. Not because he's a bad actor, but because he had to darken his face to do it. He brings the mummy to life so that the mummy can kidnap the resurrected Ananka the college girl, and then they can all go back to Egypt together as mummies. I think that in not the first but the second Mummy movie is when Kharis, the mummy, this mummy, not the Boris Karloff mummy, but Kharis, a different mummy, um, and Ananka were first brought to England or America or wherever it takes place. I still don't know. And um, and Kharis still lives in the swamp, which is where his box was fell off the cart, and so he still lives in the swamp. And so this movie's about they will finally go back, but he has to bring the Ananka body with him, and they don't have the original Ananka body, which I don't know what happened to that. Um, Maybe they don't want to bring the original one. I didn't catch that, but they need the new Ananka so they can all go back together, and Ananka and Kharis can rest in peace together, and that is the plot. And it doesn't quite go as planned, but by the end we have a kind of a she-mummy, but there is no the she-mummy on here like there is a she-wolf or Bride of Frankenstein or Dracula's Daughter or Invisible Woman. So that I think is a missed opportunity, because it's actually kind of neat. Her hair gets these as the movie progresses, it gets these Bride of Frankenstein streaks, and I thought that might be going somewhere interesting, but I ultimately wasn't really. Uh, while, and this might be why I missed the plot, but while we were watching it, I found finally the cartoon mummy that I've been looking for from childhood. I have these images of this cartoon mummy walking with a limping leg, and when Lon Chaney started walking with a limp as the mummy, I thought I remembered it, and it was driving me crazy, and I found it in a Chipmunks episode, and so that's probably a big part of the reason I don't have much to say about The Mummy's Ghost and have trouble remembering the title without looking at the back. Tomorrow's movie is House of Frankenstein, so that should be marginally more interesting. Sorry that I'm not more interesting about The Mummy's Ghost, but I just, for some reason, The Mummy, even though the Brendan Fraser Mummy is one of my favorite movies, and the Boris Karloff Mummy really caught me, I really liked it. They seem like Frankenstein, but not Frankenstein. But we'll see. There are two more, The Mummy's Curse and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. And if Abbott and Costello, which I've also never seen before, can't make the Mummy interesting, I don't know what will. So have a lovely midnight.